Welcome to Minerva Meets. I'm your host, Sonal Chandler, and this is episode 24, my last episode for the 2025 season. And today we're going to be talking about what's happening inside large organizations as they adopt AI. So I'm not just talking about the tools. I'm really talking about, how they're training, how new roles are being created, and even how org charts are evolving in this new AI world. And to help me really dig into this, I've got a wonderful guest today. His name is Thiago Ferreira, and he works with enterprise clients navigating this exact transformation. Thiago, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Why don't you start with telling us a little bit about your background and how you got into AI?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to be your last guest of the year. And so, yes, a little bit about me. My name is Thiago Ferreira, as you mentioned. The name of my company is Elevate AI Consulting. We are an AI consulting firm based in Miami, Florida. And we've been in business now for just over a year. I just, saw the AI revolution and definitely had to be a part of it. So I am doing a few different things in the business. On one hand, it is a big focus on AI education. So I do a lot of workshops and trainings, boot camps, and things like that, focusing on hands-on learning for AI skills. And on
Mhm.
the other hand, I am working directly with the leadership of these same companies on AI strategy, implementation, and also developing custom solutions such as agents or automations.
Super, super cool. I love it. We're going to have a lot of really cool things to talk about. So why don't we start off by setting the stage here, right? Let's start by telling our audience, what are you seeing across organizations? Are you seeing that, people are still trying to play catch up? Do you think that there's this pressure to innovate? What's going on out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing some very interesting trends. I am seeing, on one hand, leaders get more and more focused on ROI, right? The big focus on AI has been just how much more efficient it can make employees and companies. And now we're coming around to the other side of that, where people are actually asking for those results. And a lot of times they are just not seeing it, right? And so that is one of the biggest changes that I've seen over the past few months is really the focus on the ROI. And
Mhm.
with that focus on the ROI has also come a realization that people actually need training. One of
Right.
the challenges with AI is that it's seemingly so easy to use, right? Anybody can open ChatGPT, ask it a question, and have a pretty good answer. And so, because of that, a lot of leaders have not realized that there is a lot more to it. It is not as or as simple as it seems. And they are starting to realize that perhaps they're not seeing that ROI that they were promised because people actually just don't know what they're doing. They never get kind of training. And so those are the two big trends that I'm seeing across multiple different industries. And I think they're both actually really positive for the future of the industry.
Yeah. And, there was an article which I'm sure came across your inbox too around the ROI and the 95%, right? Like that, I think is doing an injustice to those that are trying to get it right, because I think that there just hasn't necessarily been a discussion around how do you align your AI strategy to your business goals so that it allows you to actually measure ROI, to understand, how do I even measure ROI? I'm sure that article surfaced and it got a lot of heat too. First, people were like talking about it as if everyone's failing with their AI projects. But if you really dug deep into the article, you'll see that sampling was very small. I think it was like 25 companies were part of that. So I don't think it was a fair judgment, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree. I did see that article also. I thought that it was very clickbaity, right? Of course,
Yeah.
the big thing out there that's going to make everybody click on it. And we know that's just how things work in the journalism world and marketing people to read that. But you're right. If you dig into the numbers, the sample size was extremely small.
Mhm.
And at the same time, for me as an AI consultant, I thought the opposite of what a lot of people thought. Many people thought, oh, that's it. That's the proof. AI doesn't work. We're done with it. I saw it as a huge opportunity, right? Like, no, it is clear to everyone that we have a very powerful tool, the most powerful tool probably that's ever been created. We have access to all the data that has ever been publicly released throughout human history, basically,
Right.
and we're not using it correctly. And so to me, that was the big headline, right? Is how do we have all of this powerful technology and we're not being able to actually capture the benefits? And
Right.
some people saw it as a damnation of the AI technology.
Yeah.
You saw it as a huge opportunity for people like myself and you who are
Mhm.
actually working with the technology and can help businesses actually get the most out of it.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of helping businesses, you mentioned training and the different types of training trends that you might be seeing as you're going into these organizations. What are you seeing when it comes to different types of AI enablement programs, or how are organizations embracing this? Is it sort of by team? Is it, hey, everybody just dive in? What are you, is it the technical teams,
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm seeing two different trends out in most of my enterprise clients. One is a more centralized approach, right? So the company itself from higher up will either bring in trainers or consultants to train entire teams, or maybe they will start from the leadership and go down from there. And then also from the top down, set governance and different types of policies and guidelines in order to guide their employees.
Yeah.
The other approach that I'm seeing looks a little bit more like corporate World War III in a way, in a sense that you have, in some cases, companies who are also trying to do a centralized and from the top. And at the same time, there are different departments and different leaderships trying to do something with their own teams and be the center of excellence, you could say, or the
Mhm.
example for the rest of the company. Right. So that is also creating some very interesting battle lines, you could say, in the corporate world,
Sure.
where you're seeing maybe, the leader of the sales department trying to do something and the director of the marketing department trying to do something else, and each department trying to do their own thing with their own teams. And in the end, we're going to see whose policies and whose governance and whose tools are actually going to be supreme within that company.
Yeah.
I think both approaches can really work if it's controlled, of course, if it doesn't actually
Mhm.
turn into a World War III, right? But the competitiveness of the second approach, I think, just really depends on the company culture and how well they support that type of working style. But
Yeah.
many different approaches, and to your point, the center of it all has to be the training and the focus on the humans that are actually there making
Right.
human-centered AI.
Yeah. In every conversation I have with clients around AI, it's always, oh, is AI going to be taking my job? Right. And so this conversation was really important just to sort of demystify some of that. And hopefully we've evolved enough now where we realize we still need the human in the loop. But the one thing just that really stands out for me when it comes to training, and we recently did a webinar around this, is it's about making sure that whatever team gets stood up to take training or to be the champion, try to make sure that it's a cross-functional team, right? People from multiple departments that are coming together so that you're getting this vision and you're getting these different thoughts from across the organization versus just, like you said, the World War III, one person dictating how that adoption works throughout the organization.
Yeah, no, I mean it's 100% true. With the World War III thing, is definitely people have seen the opportunity of being that shiny example, right? The center of excellence for the company, being those champions. And so they are stepping up and trying to maybe sometimes fill the gap where the company is not necessarily giving them the tools or the right policies for them to be able to do their work more efficiently and compete, right? And bring in the results that are being expected. Because when you talk about trends, really the biggest trends that I see is smaller budget, smaller teams, but bigger expectations.
Right. Yeah.
So that is what corporate teams are working with now, and not just corporate, across small businesses as well. They are feeling the pressure, right?
Yeah.
To compete with the other small business down the street or across the state.
Mhm.
So it is really hard for companies to be able to bottle that competitive advantage that AI is supposed to bring when everybody is working towards that same competitive advantage, right?
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So along the trading, we're talking about the different approaches, but then we're also talking about how the org chart is evolving and some of these new roles that are emerging because of this AI responsibility in the organization. I've seen things like the AI champion or the prompt curator, things like that. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so the biggest one that I'm seeing is actually, you called it a prompt curator. I've seen it called
Mhm.
a prompt engineer. Is
Yes,
basically the
it's
same.
probably a more appropriate name.
Sure, even though I question the engineering part of it, but okay, we can call it a prompt engineer if makes people feel good.
Right.
It's totally fine. So that is one of them for sure. Obviously, the big trend out there is the fractional chief AI officer
Right.
services that I offer, I believe you offer as well,
Mhm.
and that we're seeing as a great option for companies who are not necessarily ready to hire a full-time AI person or an AI director, right?
Mhm.
That can be a great way for companies to kind of dip their toes in the water, take the first steps towards setting the right governance and the right policies for employees. Because that is really one of the big things that I'm seeing as well. A lot of companies, the employees are just not sure yet what tools they're even allowed to use.
Right.
Can I use ChatGPT or should I be using Gemini? Can
Right.
I use Gamma? Do I have to be using PowerPoint? And they're trying to go on these websites, and a lot of times they're blocked, right, by the firewall
Mhm.
of the company. And so starting with the roles that can help you, number one, get people trained up, get them up to speed. And number two, help you set the right governance and the right policies for your employees so that they feel safe and well guided in what they're doing. Those are the most important, I would say, new roles that I'm seeing, although there's out there that companies are trying to implement as well.
Sure. And I think when it comes to the governance piece, having those policies and procedures in place that are aligned with your security policies and as a CISO, I have to plug the whole security part of this. It also gives the leadership some peace of mind about the where data is staying, and it allows this open communication internally about what's going to go into AI versus not. Do you think these new roles are here to stay, or are they temporary things that are then going to evolve or disappear?
I do think that things such as the more informal roles, like the AI champion, right? I think that
Mhm.
those things will dissipate a little bit over time as AI just
Mhm.
becomes ingrained as part of our way of working, right? It just becomes another tool that we have, much like the internet, right? I'm sure maybe there were the internet champions way back when the internet first
Right.
to, come around, and should we have a website? Should we not? And there was always that person in the company who was more at the forefront of the technology.
Mhm.
And that person, that role, so to speak, doesn't exist anymore, right? Because the internet is just part of everything that we do.
Right.
I think that over time it will become less relevant when it comes to having an AI champion or even maybe a prompt engineer, as
Mhm.
the systems also get better and better and also get to know us better. I do think that the focus that we currently have on prompting will reduce over time. It won't be
Mhm.
necessary to be so exact with our prompts and the way that we're prompting down the line.
Right.
uh, However, roles that are related to overall training, especially when it comes to AI skills and different skills on different tools,
Mhm.
and also roles that are related to especially ethics and governance will continue to be extremely important and will continue to grow in these companies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What about the smaller organizations, right? Like, so these roles make a lot of sense in large enterprises, but then you've got the smaller, even maybe the smaller mom and pops. Like, how are they adjusting to this shift of AI adoption and what they need to have on staff to ensure that they're continuing to stay relevant in this race?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I'm working with the small and medium-sized businesses, I do agree with you that these AI specific roles don't necessarily make sense. They just don't have
Mhm.
the bandwidth or the budget or really the need to have somebody full time, right? And for those business specifically, what I always recommend is more training, right? I can't say
Yeah.
it enough. Having your people, you don't need to have an AI prompt engineer in your small business if your entire team is well trained on prompting and knows how to get the most out of the tools that they're using.
Right. Right.
Smaller teams, it is about bringing the proper training so that the people that you currently have can use the tools and share really those responsibilities amongst everybody. So I think it's still a good idea to maybe have an AI champion, so to speak. So I am working with the company right now as a small business. They have about 20 employees.
Mhm.
In our boot camps, we identified one of the employees who was just really excited about everything, right?
Right.
He
Right.
loved getting his hands on and like building things. And so that person is now the unofficial AI champion. That for the smaller teams maybe becomes even more important, although as more of an informal role that can also serve as a leadership opportunity for that person who steps up and decides to be the AI champion or whatever the company decides to call it.
Yeah, I love meeting those individuals, by the way, right? Like they're the ones that are sort of waiting in line to talk to you after the boot camp, and they've got even more questions. And then you're sort of thinking, well, you could have just done this. Yeah, but then,
They're the ones also that will reach out afterwards on LinkedIn or via email. And be like, this is the use case that we developed during the boot camp. Like, can you
Mhm.
continue helping me with it? Can I make it even bigger than what we could make within those few hours that we have?
Yeah.
And I love talking to those people. Those are my people.
Yes, I completely agree. So earlier on, when I introduced the episode, I talked about how org charts are being redesigned to support AI. And what does that look like? What is the org chart of tomorrow going to look like? Are we going to have more agents, robots? There's this fear, I think, that people have that, especially people coming into the workforce or people that are leaving the workforce. I think there's people coming into the workforce who are saying, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I'm going to have a job because the robots are going to be doing everything. And then you've got people who are sort of at the peak of their careers thinking, is this the right time for me to exit? Because there's not going to be a job left for me anymore. So, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think it's a really challenging time for employees of companies of all sizes and at all levels. And I think especially a hard time for leadership of companies right now trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm seeing across pretty much all the clients that I work with and have worked with is that the leadership is getting that pressure, right? Like the C-suite level and the directors, they're getting that pressure to do some AI and to redesign things and figure out what the new roles, pretty much everything that we've talked about so far.
Right. Right.
They're getting that pressure and they're turning around and saying, but I have actually no idea, right? They don't know either. They also have not received the proper training.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of times, they're being asked to pass down these efficiency plans downstream to the entire organization when they themselves can barely use ChatGPT other than to, ask it a quick question, question like everybody can. So they have no idea the possibilities. They have no idea what these tools can actually do, but they are getting the pressure to do some AI across the organization.
Yeah.
And so, as far as what that looks like, it's been looking very different across different clients that I've worked with. I have a specific workshop that I do with just C suite levels that is called the new organizational chart. Part of there is try to do a more hands on activity looking at the current organizational chart and trying to work from there. What do we think are some efficiencies that AI can have across the enterprise? Should then try to figure out what does this actually look like for us in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, right? And so,
Yes.
but it has been a very different approach at every different company. So I've tried to standardize that conversation through that specific workshop, but it's been every company has its own little universe, right? And every leader also has their own ideas of what that can look like.
Mhm.
It's been very unique at every company that I've spoken to for sure.
Super interesting. That's a great class. I'd love to sit in on that one time. But I think that a common thread across all of those different organizations that you do these boot camps for is that balance between, being innovative, right? Going out there and trying the new things, but also having boundaries, right? The governance around it. So, um, do you think that those two things, the governance and the innovation, can actually coexist in an environment like we're in today?
They absolutely can and they must, right?
Right.
We're coming from an environment where we've been developing, informational technologies for many years now, and the internet has brought us to where we are today. That has come with a lot of efficiencies and also a lot of risks for enterprises and for companies of all sizes, right? When it comes to proprietary information and things like that, hacking and other issues. And that is only supposed to be exponentially worse, actually, with AI, right? AI is not here to help us fix those issues. In fact, it's just going to make them any companies with any of those vulnerabilities will be just easier to exploit. And so
Right.
if you don't have the right governance, if you don't have the right policies, if you're not working hand in hand with your IT department on actually keeping things secure, then you don't have any kind of competitive advantage, right? At the same
Right.
time, if you're being so strict that you're not applying any new tools or trying new things, you're also staying behind. And so we have to find that balance between the legacy software that we've been using with these new technologies and exactly where the safety and security is in between. And we have to find that line. And the line is different for every organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I think that's actually a really good segue into this next topic around culture, because we talk a lot about the structure and the type of governance that needs to be there. But in my mind, culture and leadership, that's more of this mindset shift and embracing some of these technologies. Because believe it or not, I've actually talked to individuals who are just entering the workforce who have a huge fear around AI. And how do you take an entire organization and rebuild a culture around AI when there's this job fear that's constantly like lingering around? What are your thoughts on that?
So the best approach that I've seen so far from companies has been just transparency and
Mhm.
training, right? I'll keep going back to training, but I do want to talk about transparency a little bit because there's a big difference when I walk into a company who the manager, the director who hired me to do a boot camp or a workshop has been completely transparent with their employees
Yeah.
versus the ones that have not, right? The ones that are trying to mask the current moment as far as how urgent it is that everybody actually learns how to use this technology and become
Mhm.
efficient, right? So
Mhm.
the thing that I see is that the companies where there's good, positive culture between the leadership and the employees, and there is that transparency, the
Mhm.
camps and that mind shift just happens a lot quicker and a lot more naturally because when I walk in and there's a manager that has literally told their team, all right, everybody, as you can see, we're stopping 2 days of work to do 2 days of AI bootcamp. We need everybody to focus on this because everybody's job is on the line. And I've had situations, you know what I mean, where the manager is literally telling
Yeah.
them, this is it. We're here to learn because we don't know if our jobs are even going to be here tomorrow. And I think it's really interesting because instead of causing like total fear and chaos in the department, that usually motivates people, right? They're like, oh, not only is my company being very transparent and telling me the truth that we don't know what the future holds, but they're investing in giving me the tools actually and the time to learn this and ensure that I will have a position here in the future. Right.
Yeah.
So that transparency actually motivates people. And those have been the companies where the employees have been reaching out to me after the boot camp and been super motivated to continue the work.
Oh, wow.
First is when I walk into a company, and I had this just, a couple of weeks ago where my very first discovery call with the owner, after they hired me to do a boot camp, I usually, have an initial call with them, find out a little bit about the company. And the first words out of the owner's mouth were, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Oh, hey, how are you doing?" He's like, I'm not doing good. I hate this AI stuff. Right.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, well, this boot camp is going to be interesting, but hey, I appreciate his honesty, right?
yeah.
That
Yeah.
is also the energy that he's transmitting to his employees.
Yeah.
And the result is then approaches the boot camp with a little bit of fear instead of excitement.
Yeah.
And so those
Yeah.
are some of the things that I'm seeing out there and that really make a big difference when it comes to training.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I love that you shared the transparency piece because I have walked into organizations and you can just feel the vibe, right? Like you're sort of thinking, okay, who knows? And they see you and they like almost peg you as the bad guy, right? Because and when that happens, okay, there's some conversations that haven't happened. And we need to make sure that this leadership team understands that they've got to have these conversations with their staff. But yeah, I love that you brought up the transparency piece. What about barriers? I mean, you're not being transparent is obviously a barrier, but are you seeing anything else that can impact the adoption, AI adoption in general?
Yes, I do think, well, there's the classic one, right, which is the usual IT department. They are always a barrier, but for good reason, right? We understand they're
Mhm.
trying to keep everybody safe. A lot of times, the people working in these IT departments have been there for many years, right? They do have the best interest and the safety of the company at heart, and they
Yeah,
are amazing technology professionals. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they've been trained on AI technology specifically,
yeah,
right? And so there's still a lot of fear. There's still a lot of uncertainty about what AI will do to their entire infrastructure that they've set up for
right.
years for the company. That is one of the biggest barriers that I see. And there's obviously ways to work around that, right? And work
Yeah,
towards that, in fact. The other big barrier that I see is ego, honestly,
yeah, interesting.
from leadership, and I couldn't believe this, right? I was negotiating with this company for a while about some training, and it all started really well. And then by the end of it, they kind of told me, hey, we're not going to proceed because the leadership feels that they're too senior for training. That was the feedback.
Wow.
And I was just thinking, okay, did they come out of the womb being leaders, Brian? Did they come out of the womb knowing about AI technology? How is this? What
Yeah.
is what your role or what your level is have to do with getting trained on a new technology?
And what about continuous learning? Right?
He was learning all of that. So
Wow.
that just goes to show you that, it has a lot to do with what I was saying before. AI, one of the challenges is that it's so easy to use, right? That is one of the big advantages is how easy to use. One of the big challenges is also that it's so easy to use that then people don't believe that they need any additional training or
Yes.
because they've had one, 30-minute workshop on prompting that's all they need. And if you have leadership thinking like that, then they're passing that down to their employees as well. They're keeping their employees from getting trained. You know what I mean? They are not seeing the opportunities of getting hands on with AI and actually seeing what it can do. So
Yeah.
then you can be a more well rounded leader to develop the strategy that the rest of the company is going to be using. Right.
Yeah.
So that is one of the big challenges as well, is just people's egos getting in the way, especially at the higher leadership levels. People just don't want to admit that they
Right.
don't necessarily know what they're doing, which none of us do at this point, right?
Exactly. Yes. It's an open playing field, but having that growth mindset is so critical, especially in this era where we're all trying to embrace AI and figure out how it's going to fit not only into our professional but personal lives, right? It's crazy. And I think something else that I've seen is I have a discovery conversation with a client or a prospect, and they tend to think, well, we're just going to do this on our own and we're going to leverage ChatGPT, but they don't realize you can go beyond that, right? You don't have to just stick with ChatGPT. There's so much out there the technology that you can use when it comes to AI, that if you're just going to build your empire on top of ChatGPT, it's like a house of cards, right? At any point, you're going to lose information or you're not going to be able to scale the way you want to.
I mean, absolutely. ChatGPT is amazing, is an incredible tool, as we know. You can use it for a million different use cases, but it's level zero. Right? If you think you know AI because you're using ChatGPT, then you're going to have some news coming at you very soon, right? Because it is truly level zero. And it is, probably the only tool that most people need in their personal life.
Right. Yeah.
But when it comes to your professional environment and your company's needs, it is truly level zero.
Yeah.
Asking it a couple questions and getting some vague answers is not using AI, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
that's a lot of people, that's what I hear all the time, right? I'm like, oh, I'm an AI consultant, and people go, oh yeah, I use ChatGPT sometimes, I'm pretty good at it. Oh my gosh, you have no idea, right?
Yeah.
There. And so because of that, I also, as part of my AI training bootcamp, one of the sessions that I have is literally called Beyond ChatGPT.
I love it.
So we literally are looking at all different kinds of tools for making websites, making PowerPoint presentations, right? Image generators, video editors, a suite of tools so that just get an idea of what's possible, right? And even so, we're only scratching the surface of what the tools are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I love it. Well, I can talk about this forever, but I need to wrap this one up. So, Thiago, thank you so much for being here. Before I let you leave, I always like to ask my guests, give me some takeaways here. If there's one thing that you want our listeners to take away and get out of this conversation, what would it be?
Training is not only wanted by your employees, it is needed. AI training is your competitive advantage. Your people are, in fact, your competitive advantage, but having your people stay behind and not know how to properly use the tools and get the most out of them can actually become your competitive disadvantage. So focus on training, focus on the people that you have invested so much on to bring onto your team, to train on your company values, your policies, your products, right? Invest in your people by giving them the training that they actually want. And trust me, they are going to thank you, because AI training, if done correctly, is actually a lot of fun. It is not your typical corporate training that nobody wants to attend. These want and need and are demanding training. So that can be truly your company's competitive advantage. And that is where I am putting my focus on for the foreseeable future, is making sure to share human-centered AI with as many organizations as I possibly can.
Oh, well, there you have it, folks. I love it. Thank you so much, Thiago. Please let our listeners know how they can get in touch with you, where they can find you, LinkedIn, website, whatever you got.
Absolutely. So you can find us at Elevate AI Consulting on all the major platforms. So Elevate AI Consulting on LinkedIn, Instagram as well, elevateaiconsulting.com, and our YouTube channel, also Elevate AI Consulting. And finally, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do so either on my website or via email, which is Thiago, Thiago, at elevateaiconsulting.com.
Wonderful. And I will link all of this information in the show notes. Just wanted to remind everyone again that if you have any AI needs or cybersecurity needs, please reach out to Minerva Consulting at Let's Talk at minervaconsultinginc.com. You can even go to our online home at minervaconsultinginc.com. And before I sign off here, I'd like to ask my listeners to take 3 next steps. First, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Leave a rating and add a comment. I love reading them all. Thank you, Thiago. I can't wait to have you back on the show in 2026. So let's think about that. And really looking forward to continuing to collaborate.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.